This is CBC Here and Now.
The province says a new automated system will save millions of dollars and reduce wait lists.
It's an electronic system used to provide phone, email, or text reminders for non-urgent in-person appointments.
Coming up on Here and Now.
Right now there's about 50 dead seals like these lying on a beach in CBS, and the federal government and provincial government are hands off, meaning the town of CBS is going to have to pay for it.
We see it as a health and safety issue, and that's a big concern for us. So we will take care of it, but we will be seeking to get the money back, and hopefully we'll be able to do that.
I'm Jeremy Eaton, I'll have that story coming up.
Based on his social media presence alone, it's now safe to say this man is one of the most influential people in a fishing industry that's now in chaos.
I would say I'm a unifier. If I wasn't, there wouldn't be 13,500 people on that group.
We'll meet Jason Sullivan coming up.
Good evening and welcome to Here and Now. I'm Heather Gillis, filling in for Carolyn Stokes. Ashley is on assignment tonight, so we're going to have a familiar face standing by for your weather. That's a little later in the show. But first, health officials say too many people are missing medical appointments in Newfoundland and Labrador. Up to a quarter of appointments are missed for some cardiology services, for example. The province says it's working on a solution, one that will shorten wait times and save tens of millions of dollars. Here and Now's Mark Quinn reports.
I've missed appointments in the past, so we probably all have in this room if we were going to be honest with each other.
It happens, but the health minister says it needs to happen less often. Right now, missed medical appointments are costing the province a lot of money.
Yes, it is tens of millions of dollars. It's hard to measure. It's probably a couple of $100 million is the cost of the system.
Tom Osborne says it's not just about the money. When people don't show up, it means someone else who needs care can't get it, and the wait list for health services grows.
It's your care that is delayed, or the care of somebody else on the wait list.
In some areas of healthcare, patients are already getting appointment reminders by phone, email, and text. The automated notification system has been in use since 2019, before COVID, for services such as endoscopy and medical imaging.
We've seen in some areas where we implemented this reductions in missed appointments from 30 to 50%.
So now the province is promising that in the coming months, an automated notification system will be used for all healthcare appointments.
That expansion has started. We have a couple of programs now that we're working on, neurology and nephrology. We will get them implemented within the next 8 weeks.
Osborne says patients have a responsibility here too. He says if they can't make an appointment, they should cancel it quickly so someone else can have it. He says the automated system will make it easier to do that. The province hopes to get the number of missed appointments down as low as 2%. Mark Quinn, CBC News, St. John's.
Still with healthcare news, the World Health Organization says the spread of COVID-19 is no longer a public health emergency of international concern. But that doesn't mean the pandemic is over. Medical Officer of Health, Dr. Janice Fitzgerald, says some areas of the world are still seeing increasing case numbers. She also says the pandemic won't be over until cases around the globe ramp down, which could take a while. She says the WHO's declaration won't change much here in the meantime.
As I said, we've probably been doing much of what the WHO is recommending at this point for the last year when our emergency was declared over last March. So we have been moving in this direction. So, we're still recommending that everybody get vaccinated. If you hadn't had a fall vaccination, make sure you get one. There are some people who now qualify for a spring vaccine as well, and so we are recommending that. All those same measures that we've been recommending for the last 3 years still apply: washing your hands, staying home if you're sick, practicing good hygiene, wearing a mask.
Now let's take a look at COVID numbers across the province. Newfoundland and Labrador recorded 4 new deaths in today's online update. Those deaths occurred over the last 4 weeks. The update does not include data gathered after last Saturday, that's May the 6th. There have been 17 hospitalizations reported in the last 2 weeks. 3 of the people who died were 80 or older. The other person who died was in their 70s. And as I mentioned, Dr. Janice Fitzgerald says COVID-19 is still with us, and there's other things that she says we should be watching for too. Stay tuned. In about 30 minutes on Here and Now, I'll be speaking with the province's Chief Medical Officer of Health, Dr. Janice Fitzgerald. Moving on now, the town of Conception Bay South is on the hook for a cleanup along its shores. Earlier this month, dozens of dead seals washed up on beaches in the community, and there's been a back and forth between federal and provincial agencies as well as the town about who is responsible for cleaning up the mess. CBS Mayor Darren Bent isn't happy about having to shoulder the cost. He spoke with Here and Now's Jeremy Eaton earlier today.
Well, it's a real concern for us as a town. Some of these carcasses are in close vicinity to residences. They're on our beaches, which is, one of our great attractions here, trailway areas along the beaches and so forth. So it's a great concern for us from a health and safety perspective. We can't have rotting seal carcasses laying on our beaches here in Conception Bay South. We have to take action to make sure that they get cleaned up. One of the things that we did was we reached out, of course, to our federal and provincial counterparts that would take care of these sorts of things. And it turns out that no one is responding to do this. So now it's left to the town of Conception Bay South to remove the seal carcasses. The unfortunate part about that is that we're the smallest level of government with the least amount of resources, yet the bill falls to the residents of Conception Bay South to clean these up. We're a little disappointed with that, and quite frankly, I can tell you that we'll be seeking to get any funds back that we expend to clean up these carcasses from any level of government that we can, because we don't feel that this should be on a burden on the taxpayers of Conception Bay South. It's a bit of work. I mean, you've got to clean up seals in various areas. You've got to make sure that they're disposed of properly. So it looks like it's going to cost us about $15,000, maybe a bit more, to ensure that this problem's cleaned up. And I can let you know that I believe that this situation will be dealt with and finished up, hopefully, by tomorrow. And then after that, going forward, we hope not to see any more seal carcasses on the beach here for quite some time, if ever again. Well, we are disappointed. I mean, we thought that this was a wildlife issue. We thought that this was a DFO issue. We reached out to them, but to only find out that apparently it matters where they land on the beach, whether they're a provincial responsibility or a municipal one. We reached out for support and help with this because we don't have the scientific expertise. We don't have the manpower that is required to deal with these sorts of things, whereas these other agencies, we understand, have in other cases around the province have dealt with situations where carcasses have come up on the beach. So we were a little surprised that it was basically, no, this is on you. You go clean them up. So that's what we're going to do, and we're going to do that on behalf of the residents because we don't want rotting seal carcasses. We see it as a health and safety issue, and that's a big concern for us. So we will take care of it, but we will be seeking to get the money back, and hopefully we'll be able to do that. Is it resolved, and can we move past it? Are more seal carcasses going to show up on the beach? We don't know. And therefore, we understand now that we are on the financial hook, and certainly in the first instance. Will we be continuously on the hook when something rolls up on our beach that comes in from the ocean? That's a concern.
To Labrador now, residents of Black Tickle are without power again tonight. The power went out in that community during a winter storm last evening around 7:30. The MHA for the area, Lisa Dempster, says 3 power poles snapped and snow is built up on the power lines. There's no word on when power crews will be able to fix the poles and the line. That's because bad weather in the area hasn't let up. Environment Canada had issued a winter storm warning for that area yesterday. Newfoundland and Labrador Hydro says crews might not be able to reach the area until Thursday. Power also went out in Lodge Bay as of 1:30 this morning, but Dempster says power was restored there this afternoon.
Time for checking your weather forecast. Ryan Snodden here with you in the Weather Center. Always great to be back on the show. And let's start with our highs today. And yeah, a wide variety out there. We did squeak into the double digits in St. John's and St. Lawrence along the Burin Peninsula. But widespread single digits out there yet again. Makovic, the high just -3 today. Cartwright, no high reported there, but we can tell you that, yeah, it was a blustery day along the coast of Labrador yet again. The winter storm warnings and blowing snow advisories have come to an end as this low, again, is slowly but surely starting to work its way to the east. And an area of high pressure Off to our south and west is moving into the region, and so we do have some clearing skies as we work our way into the Thursday time period. As you can see here, we're looking at high temperatures. Yeah, still chilly along the coast of Labrador, but a more widespread double-digit forecast on tap for Thursday, and all that sunshine will certainly be welcomed. We'll have your full weather forecast coming up in just a few minutes. Heather?
Thank you, Ryan. The Deputy Premier says although the Terra Nova FPSO is out of service for longer than anticipated, it shouldn't have an impact on the province's finances. Yesterday, CBC reported on how Suncor is no longer saying when the FPSO will be back in service and pumping offshore Newfoundland. Siobhan Cody says even though it's not producing oil, it's still creating jobs.
Will not have a fiscal impact in Newfoundland and Labrador's budgetary processes this year because a minimal amount was budgeted this year in our budget. For the Terra Nova, there will be no major impact, but I will say to the people of the province that there's a huge impact because there are 742 people in this province working on the Terra Nova.
And there have been now at least 2 tentative agreements to end the tie-up in the crab industry, raising the question, just how much power does the Fisheries Union hold? And where is the real influence? Here and Now's Terry Roberts reports on that.
I've been asking around to some heavy hitters in the fishery. Why is this crab fight dragging on for so long? What am I being told? To talk to the man behind this door here in Witless Bay. Meet 40-year-old Jason Sullivan, 5th-generation fisherman from the southern shore, entrepreneur, university educated, just as handy applying fiberglass as he is hauling crab from the ocean floor.
If we don't get nothing done here today, don't you show up here tomorrow.
But he's also an outspoken advocate, a thorn in the side of the Fisheries Union.
Unfortunately, we're all learning the hard way of what the FFAW executive done when they elected Greg Pretty.
And his voice carries a lot of weight.
Essentially put us inside of a box.
Front and center whenever fishermen feel the need to protest. But his strongest presence can be found here, as administrator of a Facebook group with nearly 14,000 members. He also hosts the weekly Fisherman's Podcast. More than 1,000 tuned in last week. 2 large platforms for Sullivan to voice his opinions, share information, and to push fishermen to reject the latest deal. He didn't like the trip limits with financial penalties for harvesters.
If I had to be in the room, that would have been shut down, that would have been over. Move on to something that people might actually look at.
How did he inspire such a following?
It was pretty simple. All you have to do is tell the truth, and people respected that. We're not used to having communication as fishermen. We've never had it.
FFAW President Keith Sullivan suddenly announced in December he was quitting. And within hours, the union executive endorsed longtime organizer Greg Pretty as his successor. Jason Sullivan had enough.
If I know I'm better than him, it would be better for the people.
He threw his hat into the ring, but was quickly disqualified because of his links to Fish NL, which had attempted to form a breakaway union for harvesters. There was an uproar. Sullivan hired a lawyer to fight his exclusion from the election, and supporters donated more than $50,000 to fund his legal battle, which is ongoing.
I don't think Greg Pretty would raise $50, let alone $50,000. So.
And now Sullivan is wielding his influence again. Harvesters are refusing to untie their boats and harvest crab because of a dispute over prices. The standoff appeared to end on Friday, a tentative agreement.
It's just a good news story right now for the province.
But by Saturday, harvesters had their say, and it had all collapsed. So is Jason Sullivan the de facto leader of harvesters in this province. Sullivan wouldn't go that far, but...
If I was leading the union, it would be in a lot better shape than it is right now.
Hi, you've reached Greg Pretty.
Greg Pretty has been quiet for days, trying to negotiate some type of deal to get the crab harvest going. One that will fly with both crab plant owners and influencers like Jason Sullivan. So is Sullivan a divider or a unifier?
I would say I'm a unifier. If I wasn't, there wouldn't be 13,500 people on that group.
Greg Pretty's current term will expire in about 15 months. And based on his verbal jabs today, Jason Sullivan plans to continue making waves, both on and off the water. Terry Roberts, CBC News, Witless Bay.
DFO still isn't committing to having fisheries guardians on rivers for longer periods of time this year. Fisheries advocates wanted to see the guardians start and end later, to catch people who may be poaching salmon. Last year, they extended Guardians further into the fall, but this year they're only promising to consider it. In a statement, DFO says in the 2022 season, Fisheries and Oceans Canada extended the Fishery Guardian program for an additional 4 weeks. The decision to end the program is based on an in-season review of operational requirements. To the town of Grand Falls, Windsor now, they say it's found a formula that works. This year's annual Salmon Festival will be similar to past events with a focus on smaller musical acts rather than booking big names. The town announced its lineup of musical acts and events today in Grand Falls, Windsor. The Salmon Festival will take place July 13th to the 17th. It'll feature a concert in the park, including the Ennis Sisters, an around-the-world food night, and Adventure Day at Gorge Park. And of course, as always, a salmon traditional dinner.
We want to have things for everybody to do, so that means all ages and abilities, and also price range. You know, a lot of times when you have these festivals, and certainly salmon festivals of the past, most things that you attended, there was a cost. But we do have a lot this year that's free event.
Now, previous salmon festivals have featured international headliners, remember Rod Stewart, but the mayor says in 2019, the town decided to take a step back from major concerts.
We had a big transition from the salmon festivals of the past. You know, 10 years ago, we'd be talking about a major band probably coming in from somewhere in the world. Those days are gone. We, in 2019, scaled back our festival to more of a community festival. We found a format that we really like and the people in the community really like, and I've had many people tell me the last couple salmon festivals have been the best they've ever experienced in over 30 years of seeing salmon fests.
Turning now to travel. Ottawa has unveiled some big changes to Canadian passports. Starting this fall, most Canadians will be able to renew their passports online, and that includes submitting passport photos. And that's not the only change. The look and features will also be different.
The improved passport is going to have new, updated features, including state-of-the-art security features that include a polycarbonate data page. This is the same technology that's used to protect our currency and driver's license, for those who are wondering what it means. Additionally, passport holders' personal information will now be laser engraved instead of being printed with ink, which is going to make the data page more durable and resistant to tampering and counterfeiting.
The outside of the passport will still bear the coat of arms, but with a slightly modernized look. Inside, historic images of Terry Fox and the Vimy Ridge Memorial are being replaced with images reflecting nature and what Ottawa calls the diversity of Canadians. These passports will be rolled out in the coming months. And a number of factors are being considered before moving Ukrainians into permanent housing. That's according to the Association of New Canadians. It's been 1 year since the province began welcoming Ukrainian refugees. More than 2,700 people have settled in Newfoundland and Labrador so far. The ANC says the needs are complex, but that they're getting very positive feedback.
Our commitment to any Ukrainian living in temporary accommodation is that no one will be asked to leave the hotel unless they have a job and the means to pay for their housing, that they can actually support themselves and support themselves properly. But we're also seeing that a lot of the people that we work with have signs and symptoms of trauma, which makes sense given the invasion that they fled. Or they are struggling because they're disconnected from family. And so some people might stay longer in the hotel because they're waiting for their family to join them, or because they need access to some of the supports and services that we've really wrapped around this community. And most Ukrainians are really happy to share with us that they feel that this is the best hug that they could receive, the best place that they can land. And they tell us stories of other people landing in other provinces who haven't received the same warm welcome.
Memorial University is standing its ground, and it won't overturn the decision to drop the ode to Newfoundland during graduation ceremonies. In a rare moment of solidarity today, members of the House of Assembly slammed MUN's decision, calling for a reversal by breaking out into song.
And I will be there May 31st, and I may stand up and sing it. I'm not much of a singer, but I may get up and sing it on my own.
Yeah, let's go. Yeah, let's do it. Yeah, let's go.
round the pine-clad hills, and summer's winter hands.
This was followed by a rendition of the Ode to Labrador, though fewer people in the House knew all the words to that. Last fall, MUN said it would scrap the official anthem because it excluded Labrador and made religious references. The university says it plans to form a committee of Indigenous students, international students, Labradorians, and others to discuss inclusivity in its ceremonies.
Well, this latest low is slowly departing. Snow coming to an end around the coast of Labrador. Lots of sunshine on tap for Thursday. Your full forecast is coming up.
This weather update is brought to you by the Healthcare Foundation Home Lottery. The absolute final deadline is midnight Friday, June 2nd. Order tickets now at hcfhomelottery.ca.
We've been talking an awful lot about icebergs this season. I'm not on here now tonight because I get to go on this plane with the U.S. Coast Guard, the International Ice Patrol, to try and find those bergs. There's some on the west coast. We're going up the strait, eventually towards the northeast coast. And we're going to have all those pictures for you another night on Here Now. But for now, I got to get on this flight. See you later.
Ryan Snodden back here in the Weather Center with your weather forecast. Of course, Ashley out having fun today for sure. A great gig to have, and we are, of course, looking at a nice looking forecast over the next couple of days. So we look at those highs today. Yeah, still cool here across certainly Newfoundland and Labrador, and even across the northeast parts of the Maritimes, but you can see this warmer air kind of waiting in the wings across the Great Lakes, and we're at least going to be tapping into some of these milder temperatures. We're back into the double digits as this low finally starts to depart, and won't be under the influence of it so much over the next 24 hours. What we're really looking for is this area of high pressure off to the south and west, and that area of high pressure is going to be moving into the region. That'll help to kick that low out. And well, let's walk you through it. First and foremost, winter storm warnings have come to an end along the coast of Labrador. Still some additional light snowfall tonight in the trace to 5 centimeter range from Cartwright up into the Rigolette area. Could even see as much as another 5 to 10 centimeters for places like Postville and Makovic. But for the most part, this thing is finally done. And we will be watching that winding down through, slowly but surely through the overnight. Some clouds spinning around that low will work their way into the region overnight tonight, but generally it's pretty quiet out there. Temperatures are going to be near the freezing mark across the island, and yeah, we'll be anywhere from 0 in the Strait to -7 in Labrador City, Wabash, with those winds light. Note those winds still northwesterly, gusting upwards of 60 kilometers per hour, but could see some gusts as strong as 80 along parts of the coast from Cartwright to Rigolette, and so we'll be watching for that. St. Anthony also gusting around 60 kilometers per hour tonight, a bit of a southwest wind across the island that will be breezy. That low, again, note it continues to work its way towards the north and east throughout Thursday, and so we're looking at a lot of sunshine tomorrow. Well-deserved sunshine and well-deserved double digits as well on tap. Now with that southwest wind, places like Placentia, down to the southwest Avalon, and onshore winds for the Burin Peninsula as well. We're talking about the winds coming right in off the water, so 4 or 5 degrees is about all we're going to muster there. 7 degrees in Port aux Basques, but working your way inland, we're going to be into the double digits, and some double digits Labrador City to Happy Valley Goose Bay as well. Now that area of high pressure will keep us quiet for Friday. Another nice one shaping up for Newfoundland. Some showers rolling into Labrador City, 15 degrees there, 19 ahead of this front coming in Labrador, in Happy Valley Goose Bay rather. Temperatures anywhere from 10 to 16 degrees across the island. Again, cooler in those onshore winds in places like Port aux Basques. And then watch the timeline of this. We'll see that rain pushing its way into Friday night and Saturday for Labrador. And yes, this will work its way into places like Corner Brook, western parts of Newfoundland throughout the day on Saturday. Starting to edge into central late afternoon, perhaps, hopefully not until supper time. For St. John's, it's going to be increasing clouds, and through eastern Newfoundland, even for the Burin and Clarenville and Bonta Vista, it looks like that rain is going to hold off until this Saturday night and into Sunday time period. Temperatures, you can see, into the double digits, which will be nice. Now for central parts of the island, as I said, those showers creeping in as early as Saturday afternoon, but hopefully not until Saturday evening in the overnight. We can see temperatures into the mid-teens as we work our way throughout the weekend. Showers arriving earlier, obviously, for the west coast. Saturday looking cloudy with those showers on tap. Note the temperatures ticking up nicely into the Friday time period and remaining into the mid-teens throughout the weekend. Now for Happy Valley Goose Bay, as we said, we'll be near 20 on Friday ahead of that front. That front comes through as we work our way into Saturday, and then on the other side of that front, certainly some cooler temperatures waiting in the wings on Sunday. We'll be into the low single digits, if not near the freezing mark along the coast of Labrador. And we are looking at, for Lab West, looking at those overnight lows dropping back below the freezing mark. Certainly a cool down coming in on the other side of that front. That is your forecast to now.
Thanks, Ryan. Good to see you. Returning to the House of Assembly today, the tie-up in the crab fishery continued to dominate question period, with the opposition drawing attention to the fact that the Premier is in Europe this week at a hydrogen conference. Here's how the Fisheries Minister responded.
For the people of this province, people in our fishery, we are involved. We're doing our part. The Premier's been involved. Mr. Davis is involved. I've been involved myself. We want to see this standstill come to an end. We want to get people back on the water. We want to get people in trucks. We want to get people in fish plants. We want people making ice. We want people offloading, loading, you name it. We want to get our industry open, Mr. Speaker.
We all want things to happen in this industry, but somebody has to take the lead, and it's the Premier's responsibility as the Premier of this province to take the lead and get this moving, Mr. Speaker. Speaker, snow crab fishery impacts all of us. It impacts the small stores, those on production lines, and the people in every single corner of our province. It's time to get both sides talking so people can get back to work. Why does the Premier believe he's needed more in Europe there than during the largest crisis facing our fishing industry since the moratorium?
The Honourable the Minister of Fisheries, Forestry and Agriculture.
Mr. Speaker, let's not look at the theatrics of all this here today. The onus is on two parties to solve this, ASP and the FFAW. We've put avenues in place, we have mechanisms in place to help them to solve this issue. Because of social media, trade to violence, and everything else, we are still not fishing this year. We have mediators. Last year we changed the procedure. We brought in people. We brought in professionals. Change of administration at FFAW, and that don't seem to be good enough. For 8 weeks they worked on the formula. 8 weeks, Mr. Speaker. Now if you look at social media, everybody's got a formula. So we need a solution. We need our fishery on. We don't need the opposition picking any more O's into this. If they have some great, plausible reasons and ways to solve this, bring it forward. Help out the FFAW.
The Honourable the Leader of the Official Opposition.
Thank you, Speaker. I guarantee you, the opposition are not picking holes in negotiations here. What we're saying, their leadership has to be shown here to broker a deal. The former Liberal Premier took the leadership here and brokered a deal to make sure the last time there was crisis in the fishery. Why can't this Premier do the same thing?
And we've got a breaking news update for you now on this story, that ongoing crab saga. According to the FFAW's Facebook page, an urgent call will take place with all snow crab chairs this evening at 7 o'clock to review an offer from the seafood producers. It says details of this offer will be shared publicly as soon as leadership has been briefed. Well, don't call the COVID-19 pandemic over just yet. Up next, my one-on-one interview with the province's Chief Medical Officer of Health, Dr. Janice Fitzgerald. Welcome back to Here and Now. Late last week, the World Health Organization said the spread of COVID-19 is no longer a public health emergency of international concern. So what does that mean for how the virus is handled here in this province? And is the pandemic over? Not yet. Here's what the province's Chief Medical Officer of Health, Dr. Janice Fitzgerald, had to say to explain it all. Last week, the World Health Organization said that the global health emergency with the COVID-19 pandemic was over. And in some respects, I think people heard the pandemic is over. Can you explain what this means?
Yeah, so basically when the WHO declares something a public health emergency of international concern, it basically means that, it's something that needs, it's not just everywhere in the world, but it actually needs a coordinated response across jurisdictions throughout the world and across the globe. So right now what the WHO has done is they've looked at a lot of information, a lot of evidence, and of course just given what we know about vaccination rates, infection rates, what has happened with the virus itself and how it has gone with a move to producing a less severe disease, that same international coordination is not necessary. And so most jurisdictions, most countries are able to, they have their plans in place for how they're going to deal with COVID moving forward. And so now what we have to do is look at COVID, as we've been saying, I guess, for the last year or so, that we need to look at COVID as being an infectious disease, part of the landscape that happens, and we have to deal with that.
What is the difference between that and between COVID-19, the pandemic itself, being over?
Yeah, so the pandemic itself really is just talking about the amount of disease that's happening in all the different countries across the world. So, in some countries there is still COVID that is increasing. They're having increasing cases, and so, the pandemic won't really be declared over until they see that sort of general downtrend everywhere. It may take a little while before the pandemic itself is actually declared over.
And what does this declaration from the World Health Organization that, it is no longer a global health emergency mean for Newfoundlanders and Labradorians?
Yeah, well, I think, as I said, we've probably been doing much of what the WHO is recommending at this point for the last year when our emergency was declared over last March. So we have been moving in this direction. So, we're still recommending that everybody get vaccinated. If you hadn't had a fall vaccination, make sure you get one. There are some people who now qualify for a spring vaccine as well, and so we are recommending that. We've been sort of moving towards monitoring COVID in a way that similar to how we monitor flu, RSV, those sorts of things. So we are just finding ways that COVID is fitting into our day-to-day work.
And we're still seeing cases and deaths, but what kind of risk does COVID-19 still pose?
Yeah, certainly we know with Omicron that the risk of severe disease is lower. That combined with, that we have a pretty good vaccination rate. There's also infections that have happened with Omicron. Obviously, a great proportion of our population has now been infected, and that combined immunity is certainly very protective and lasts quite a while. So, we're really the risk in terms of COVID to the population, as COVID is right now, and of course we have to continue to watch COVID. It may still evolve as time goes on, but COVID as it is right now, that risk that we're seeing is similar to risks with other infectious diseases like flu, like RSV, that sort of thing.
And what about masking in hospitals? Some other provinces have started to drop masking in hospitals like Ontario and BC, Saskatchewan. Do you have any plans to do the same here?
Certainly what Newfoundland and Labrador Health Services decides to do in the end will be up to them, but I think what we've recommended and been recommending with regard to masking is really everybody doing a risk assessment and to determine if you need to wear a mask, and I think that will still have to happen. If you're going to a hospital and you have symptoms, certainly we would recommend that you mask. If there's a chance that your own risk is higher, it might be a good idea to mask, those sorts of things. So that would be what we would recommend regardless of what the masking order or recommendation is
You did mention boosters. Is there any plan to expand that booster campaign further for, say, the general public?
Not at this time. We follow the recommendations from the National Advisory Committee on Immunizations, and certainly this is what they have recommended for a spring vaccination campaign. They really focused on those groups that are at highest risk of more severe disease, so plus 65 or 65 plus, sorry, and those with immune compromise. And so we're certainly going to follow that recommendation at this time. What will happen with the fall, we don't really know yet.
And as we were talking about earlier, still seeing cases, still seeing deaths. Is this something that we should continue to accept, to see those cases, the hospitalizations and deaths as people contract the virus?
We certainly will see, just as we do with many other respiratory viruses during respiratory virus season, we do see people end up getting sick, ending up in hospital, and unfortunately succumbing to those illnesses. I think to some degree a certain amount of that is inevitable, but we know that there are lots of protective things that you can do, such as getting vaccinated, making sure you're up to date, and just practicing those personal public health measures like washing your hands and wearing a mask when you can.
Do not like seeing anything go to the dump, and it breaks my heart when I do go to the dump and see everything that people throw away.
Reduce, reuse, and upcycle. Another example of embracing bulk garbage day and finding some treasure in the trash. Welcome back. Last week, we introduced you to a Springdale man who's embracing bulk garbage season. That's because one person's trash could very well be his treasure. And well, a Cape Breton man rescuing pianos that are destined for the dump as well is doing the same thing. As Matthew Moore reports, he hopes his unique business will show others there's value in saving antiques.
Angelo Spinazzola is a musician, small business owner, and, overall, tinkerer. He hates not having a project on the go. Often, he would see posts on Facebook of people sending old pianos, like this vintage piece, to the dump.
And then I was like, you know what? I could recycle pianos, because the wood in the pianos is so beautiful, and it also, it holds music. So when people play, if this wood could only tell a story.
Spinazzola knows the special bond people form with their instruments. So he built a barn, cut out some templates, and started making bellows. His nearby cabins that he rents have a pizza oven for guests. After buying poorly made set online, he combined the idea of taking the organs out of organs.
So this one here, piano's from 1907, and it was a Heinzmann, I think it was. And I picked that up. I got it for $50. I said to the guy, I'll come in your house, I'll take the wood off the piano, I'll give you $50 for the wood, and out the door I went. So I have this beautiful wood here, and I'm going to be using that to make my next series.
Spinazzola says the idea of recycling is appealing to him. The leather he used on this set came from a leather miniskirt he found at a thrift store. The design also holds a special place.
This is a handle actually off of a knife that my father gave me that he used for hunting when he was a kid. And it's an old knife. And I took that and I put it in and incorporated it in with the handles of the bellows.
Spinazzola says it takes about 7 hours to make one, and he said it's a great way to spend the winter. Above all, he hopes people realize the value of recycling antiques.
I do not like seeing anything go to the dump, and it breaks my heart when I do go to the dump and see everything that people throw away.
Spinazzola sells the bellows on Instagram, and he hopes his idea inspires others to be creative before heading for the dump. Matthew Moore, CBC News, North River.
Canada outlined new plans to provide more military training for members of the Ukrainian armed forces. Defense Minister Anita Anand says Canada will begin training Ukrainian soldiers in Latvia as early as next week alongside Latvian troops.
We will deliver leadership development training for members of the armed forces of Ukraine, with the first of these training sessions to begin next week in Latvia. Led by a Canadian Lieutenant Colonel, the training will instruct Ukrainian junior officers on responsibilities in battle, the process of planning and orders, maneuver coordination, intelligence reconnaissance, planning, and executing.
And here at home, the wildfire danger in Alberta remains high. Crews in parts of the province are taking advantage of a turn in the weather today. They're making some progress, but there are still 76 fires. 24 of them are deemed out of control. A drop in temperatures and some rain are helping in central and southern Alberta, but there's an elevated risk in the northern part of the province from hot and dry conditions. Crews from Yukon, BC, Ontario, and Quebec have arrived to help. Manitoba has sent 2 aircraft, including 2 water bombers. More assistance from other provinces is expected in the coming days. And as you heard earlier, Canada's passport is changing. Ottawa revealed a new design today. It comes with enhanced security features. But as Olivia Stefanovic reports, its new images are drawing controversy.
Images of wildlife, a child jumping into the lake, and quintessential landscapes fill the pages of Canada's new passport.
We want to celebrate our diversity and inclusion. We want to celebrate our natural environment.
Oral questions? But the attempt to modernize the travel document generating political blowback.
Why will the Prime Minister not stand up for our history
get connected to reality, and keep the images in our passport that make us so proud to be Canadian.
The fact is, Mr. Speaker, the Conservatives have always disrespected veterans while they wrap themselves in the imagery. We're going to continue to deliver for the veterans every single day.
Wind turbines, polar bears, and owls replace historical scenes and icons introduced by former Conservative Prime Minister Stephen Harper's government, including the National War Memorial and Terry Fox.
Erasing Canadian history.
When you want to know where you're going, you have to know where you're from.
The Royal Canadian Legion says it's particularly disappointed over the removal of the Vimy Ridge Memorial, an image that the Legion says signifies the sacrifices made for the very sort of freedom the passport provides. So there's a couple images here. This new Democrat MP is happy to see more diversity, but not at this cost.
That's unfortunate, that really is, because both Terra Fox and veterans are very important to our identity as Canadians. So I'm sorry to hear that.
You should not read into it that there's some criticism or dissociation with our nation's heroes or our veterans.
The immigration minister says the new design is needed to improve security.
We wanted to have a wholesale change as part of the security features for the new passport, which makes it harder.
The current passport is still valid for up to 10 years. The government says the new version will start rolling out later this summer. Olivia Stefanovic, CBC News, Ottawa.
We're coming to you live from our playground level production studio in the heart of the biggest Leafs prep rally the TDSB has ever seen.
How is that for team spirit? Some junior broadcasters there at a Toronto elementary school. Today was a huge school-wide pep rally and a party to support the Leafs ahead of Game 4. Lots of cheering and flag waving. Students even got to take shots on Mr. Johnson there, who was wearing a Panthers jersey. He's the school's phys ed teacher. Now, that is a good sport, isn't it? Let's not forget the Edmonton Oilers. They also play Game 4 for them tonight, too. They'll try to even up their series against the Vegas Golden Knights, who lead 2-1. The Knights won Game 3 with a decisive 5-1 victory. The game begins at 11:30 Island time. That's a half hour later in most parts of Labrador. Well, not spotting any Newfoundland dogs or Labrador retrievers there. We head to the Westminster Dog Show to meet some people who are very passionate about their pooches. If you like dogs, stay tuned. Welcome back to Here and Now. A pup named after a famous performer has won Best in Show at this year's Westminster Kennel Club Dog Show.
Best in Show tonight is the PBGB.
It's Buddy Holly.
Buddy Holly. He is a Petit Basset Griffon Vendéen. I think I said that right. He's known as a PBGV. And he took home the top prize. 2,500 dogs from 210 breeds competed for the trophy. Buddy Holly is the first of that breed to win. Judges were won over by his confidence and calm demeanor. Buddy Holly's handler and co-owner says he's the epitome of a show dog because nothing bothers him. What a good boy. Look at that. How cute. And while not every competitor left with a ribbon, their owners were proud of their pooches and thrilled with the experience.
Show me love. Show me love. It takes a lot, but this is something I love. And it takes months of preparations, years of preparations. Champions are born. They're not made. He was born a champion.
Keeping the coat clean, nails trimmed, and just make sure that they're happy and they're in a good frame when they go into the ring.
This is Pink's retirement show. So we're going to have a good time just putting our best foot forward and enjoying ourselves.
Absolutely incredible, like breathtaking. This is in this stadium, this venue with all these people, all these good dogs. It's unbelievable.
Unfortunately, we didn't place or win anything, but we had a lot of fun. He was staring at everything outside the ring.
It feels very impressive, kind of different. Like I'm saying, it's the first time we be here at Westminster, and atmosphere on this show totally different from all the shows we go usually.
We come to get the job done. Win or lose, we already won. Just being here, we already won.
I didn't spy my favorite breed, the Gordon Setter. Anyway, that is our show for this evening. We appreciate you spending part of your evening with us. That's Here and Now for tonight. I hope you can join us again tomorrow. Ashley will be back. She'll have landed by then and be back in studio. For the latest on the crab situation, you can visit our website. That's cbc.ca/NL. Good night.